Hello, everyone. Right? Very good afternoon, good evening, good morning. So, in today's webinar, I'm going to share some of the challenges I faced and we faced as a team in executing AI projects. So, we have been doing a lot of AI projects last 6-7 years. We worked with many Fortune 100 companies, large scale projects spanning to 6 months to 1 year. We started in 2017 with small proof of concepts, artificial intelligence projects. Now we are doing the full scale production level projects. So we have learned a lot of things, a lot of challenges we face in real time projects. So as a 2024 resolution, I thought of sharing some of my experience that could be helpful for the LinkedIn and LinkedIn network. So that's why I'm here. So I have put in. I need to record it. All right. So that's anyway live streamed in LinkedIn. So in case if you need a recording, you can always reach back to me, send me a message. Okay. All right. So jumping in, and it's an interactive session. If you have any questions, if you are directly joining from the Zoom, then you can put your question across in the chat box. If you are joining from LinkedIn or YouTube or other channels, you can leave us a comment. I have a couple of my colleagues who are watching those channels who will essentially copy paste the question and I'll take it from here. Okay. All right. So I'm not gonna get into the details of what is AI, and by now it's very clear. AI is artificial intelligence, which can do a lot of stuff which humans do, like perceiving, reasoning, learning, interacting with the environment, problem solving, and of course creativity. I don't have to tell you that we see a lot of creative stuff coming from AI now. It can write movies, it can create pictures, probably much more creative than humans are. So we became a very uh, uh, if you look at the timelines, 1950 is where uh, Alan Turing, right? So you might be knowing the Turing Award, which is named after Alan Turing. He invented the Turing test, which is a very simple test, saying that you know to find whether a particular system or is whether it is artificial intelligence. Is it competing to human? So they ask a few questions and check. One side is human, one side is the system, and try to figure out if the system can, beat the humans or at least mimic the humans. So very 1950, that's where it's all started. From 1956, the term itself, AI, has been coined by John McCarthy. There's a lot of evolution, right, till today. From 2015, the field of AI has really picked up. It's picked up because businesses started adapting. So this is where you see, of course, there are businesses like Google and other uh, technology companies started using artificial intelligence, or you can call it as machine learning or AI, from 2010 or even before. But a widespread democratization, when you say democratization, it became a common knowledge. So most of the people, companies, small, big, professionals started adapting it from 2015. The same time where this Harvard Business Review also called the AI as the sexiest field, sexiest job, right? And then we are now in 2020, 2024. You see that almost every area, every industry, every business domains, functions are um, are somehow disrupted or adapting artificial intelligence. All right. Now we are talking about production level projects. These are massive projects, uh, so being initiated by many large companies. In fact, there are so many startups. Still, the success rate of startups are not really great. It's even below the typical tech startups as we see as on today. I have another webinar talking about the success rate of startup on what factors actually contribute to an AI startup um, to be more successfully, right? But just to give you an idea, AI is everywhere, and I don't have to tell you by now. It's very clear. AI is a very significant value to the business. From 2015, 2016, probably till 2018, 19, right? Or even like 2020. So even I would say 19, because from 2020 we started doing production projects ourselves, and I think most of the other companies started adapting AI into production environment. So when we are doing in 2015, right? So the projects are pretty straightforward. You usually get the content or the data in a CSV file. If they're images, we get it in a folder, right? We do some modeling, and then we say, what is working or not working, right? It was pretty straightforward. It wasn't really. It's mostly focused on fine tuning the AI modules and getting the accuracy what is needed by the business. But when we moved on to the production, a lot of things come in picture. So it is much more complicated than a typical software projects. Software projects has their own share of difficulties when you're going live in terms of performance and stuff. But AI comes up with a whole bunch of new aspects, which most of them are not aware, and they get caught by surprise, and then it delays the projects and it causes some more stress into the project delivery and stuff. So my intention here to share some of the problems we have faced as a company interacting with the clients delivering the product. So that's the whole goal of this webinar. Okay. The challenges we have faced, I have written down, just to give a glance and then go into each of the item individually. One is that overestimation of AI capabilities, and second one is data itself. Third is the alignment with the business. So I'll talk in more details. And the fourth one is actually AI limitations. AI comes up with its own limitation, right? And then, of course, the fifth one, which most of you are aware of, privacy, ethics, and compliance related concepts. So overestimation of AI capabilities. So a lot of clients, when we talk to them, we get a lot of respect being an AI experts, AI specialized company. And also, the expectations are very, very high. And we think it's mostly because of the hype around AI. You see a lot of POCs. Most of them are simple, nice videos showing you what can be amazingly done. A particular use case done with a nice video. And this gives a very, very high expectation of what AI is. So when we talk to the business owners, businesses, clients, the first challenge we encounter is that they think we are superheroes and AI can do anything, because that's mostly coming from the hype created around the AI, right? And we don't want to, beat that enthusiasm saying, what, these are the limitations. That's not the conversation starts. So we let that, we observe it, right? And then we get into the more details and objectives of the projects, what's expected. And then over a period of time, some of the projects we could not match the client expectation, not because we did not deliver the project well, it's because the expectation is far too high, and we did not do a proper work in terms of managing the expectation, right? Bringing them to the more realistic manner. We let that expectation stay higher, and that kind of causes problem during the project at the end of the project. So over expectation of AI capabilities is one of the very first challenge you face when you're working with AI projects, when you're the initial discussions of the AI projects. So as it's written over here, many believe that AI can solve very complex problems with a minimal input and oversight, and which is not always the case, right? For example, I put an example for giving more clarity. A client might expect an AI system to fully automate all the customer interaction without understanding the limitation of the NLP. Well, nowadays we are in the age of natural language processing, LLMs, large language models. ChatGPT is one of them, right? It does a lot of stuff very nice, but there are limitations. You cannot fully automate an entire customer interaction. Yeah, that's a process. It will, over a period of time, it goes there. But in one single project, you cannot flip the manually handled interaction, customer support into AI. Right? It should be a transition, maybe 70% automated, 30% still manual, exceptions are still manual. If the model is not confident, it has to be handled manually. And then we take inputs from what are all made manually and we fine tune the model again. And it's a longer process. You cannot expect a project will simply fully automate the customer interactions, right? That's just one example, but you can consider in other industries, healthcare industries and manufacturing and retail. Usually, what client expects from their perception is way too high when compared to what the reality is. So that's your first challenge. I see some questions, but I request keep the questions at the end. So after I finish these 5 challenges we face, I'll take all the questions. Okay. All right. This is not a new challenge. So data is really important. There are 2 kinds of artificial intelligence or learning algorithms, if you want to say that way. One requires a lot of data. It learns from the existing data, which is mostly human created, machines created, like systems created data. And then it try to mimic to do its action, like predicting things, performing the duties which was manually done by the model, automating by the model. So this is one kind of AI. One kind of AI can be only trained if you have an existing data. Data, when you say data, it is usually required in a large quantity. It should be high quality. It should be minimum mistakes. It's a lot of processing needs to be done. You need to have access to the data, which itself is a challenge for most of the companies, given the data privacy and other things. And we need to label the data. If you don't understand what is labeled, essentially we mark the data target variable. It requires a lot of human resource manually, even for computer vision projects. One of the biggest or most intensive work comes under the labeling of the images itself, right? That's one part. There is other AI which does not require data. For example, reinforcement learning, which is pretty cool. Also, passive regenerative learning, which is a cool stuff. But designing the systems are very complex. You need to come up with the mechanism of penalty and reward. We need to create the environment. Well, that's a different thing. Gaming, for example, specifically uses generative AI. And also, we see a lot of other technology. For example, if you're designing a rover which can land in the Mars or any other planet, we can use a part of generative AI, reinforcement AI, to train. And it doesn't require data, but it requires a system with penalty and rewards. It learns from its own mistakes. So broadly, an AI which learns from the existing data, AI which does not require data, it can work with the rules and learn from its own mistakes, right? Just like what humans do or any animals do at planet. To give you a simple percentage of the projects, almost 85 to 90% of the project comes under AI, which learns from the data. So typical projects we handle from all the clients for most of the business purposes, essentially learning from the existing data, which makes the data a very valuable and very crucial aspect of your project. If your client does not have a data in a proper structure, in an accessible format, right? And sometimes we need to create a project which requires streaming data. So you keep on getting data, accordingly you do the predictions, right? It becomes a biggest challenge. And most of the time, clients may not grasp the amount of high quality data required to train AI. So most of the people, as I said, AI looks like a magical tool, but it basically learns from the existing data, and data quality and the quantity of the data and the further processing required, including labeling, becomes really important. For instance, a retailer wants to implement a recommendation system, might underestimate the volume and variety of the customer data needed to train the model. So they might think, if we have details and the machine can actually, the model can actually try to recommend. But in order to learn the recommendation, it needs a massive amount of data. Your Netflix recommends movies to you, right? It basically takes care of a lot of collaborative filtering, is what we call the recommendation system, recommendation engine. It takes a lot of data, analyzes it, and then it starts recommending. The client may not be aware of it, and that becomes a second challenge. So another example as well, just read it out. A small healthcare clinic aimed to implement an AI system for diagnosing disease for the patient records. They did not realize the vast amount of diverse annotated medical data required to train the reliable model. So when you talk about medical related healthcare, so let's say you want to automate a scan, you do a X-ray of your chest, and you want to diagnose what are the abnormalities, right? In order to do that, you need probably 10,000 to 100,000 data, which are properly labeled with the kind of abnormalities based on the images. And it's a massive work. The modeling itself might be only 20% of the entire work. 80% of the work is just labeling the X-rays, the images. So most people underestimate this work and the amount of data required. Right. And the third aspect is this is something which is getting better. I think most of the clients, as we see last couple of years, they are more knowledgeable. In fact, we see the business owners, the people who are working with the project teams, or actually understand what is AI, how it works. So this is getting better, right? But still, there is a vast gap. There's a huge gap. It's often that we do a project and they do it for sake of understanding, sometimes it's curiosity, sometimes they want to market that they are an AI company. All right. So these projects are not, they're not always aligned with the company's strategy, the company's overall strategy. So when this happens, you will not get a proper inputs for your project. You will not have a management backing. If you want to implement a project in a more extensive manner, you find new opportunities, you don't get support. And not just support, you also find difficulties in terms of other aspects, including acquiring the data, et cetera, right? So, and when we do the project as required, right, ultimately, when it translates into the key benefits, they don't see the match because the project when you conceptualize the project, there itself, it is not properly aligned with the overall company's goal. And we have seen this a lot a few years ago, but now this is getting better. So people are not investing money just for the sake of testing out the AI. It is getting better now, but still there is a lot of scope and improvement. So as a part of one of the challenges we face is to educate the client back to understand where exactly this particular project is adding value to their mainstream business, right? How it is being measured. Right? Though it is not really at the scope of the project, we try to discuss with them to see if it makes an impact on their bottom line, the overall strategy. If yes, then it's a very exciting project. If no, we still do it, but we are aware that this is not a very key project for them in their line of business. Business owners might focus on implementing AI for the own sake rather than aligning it to specific goals, right? It happens in silos. Some of the division heads suddenly wants to do something AI. He has learned that AI can be very helpful in his, some area of the business. Right? And then when it really translates into overall business benefits, you don't see much, and that's a problem. There's an example over here. And a manufacturing company might want to use an AI for predictive maintenance without a clear understanding how it integrates to the existing operational process. So this is more talking about the operational process. So there is an existing operation. If you understand the maintenance of the manufacturing, they have two kinds of maintenance: preventive and predictive maintenance. Preventive is mostly a scheduled maintenance, and predictive maintenance is like basically something is going on, and breakdown maintenance. So something is going on, and then you start getting the maintenance. AI can do a fantastic predictive maintenance. It can actually tell you which parts of your machine requires maintenance, and thereby you just don't do the maintenance cycle, even though it is not necessary. Most of the time, if the manufacturer says every 1 year you have to, recycle or maintain this particular part of the machine, its life might be actually 1.5 to 2 years, right? But they take a very safe margin. So you're actually unnecessarily doing a lot of maintenance just because to be in line with the manufacturer's guidelines. AI can help you in terms of doing a predictive maintenance in terms of it can predict when a particular part or a machine requires maintenance. Thereby, you can save a lot of money, right? But this has to be aligned with the operational process of the existing company. If it is not aligned, even though this can predict, that may not actually deliver value to the organization. There are a lot of limitations of AI as such, right? So most of them client may not be aware of it in terms of AI itself and its workflow. For instance, a bank implementing an AI-based fraud system might not consider the complexity of integrating with the legacy banking system as one of the integration issues. But there are other issues. For example, ethics and bias. I'll tell you, this is a very, in fact, this has become more important as we speak. This is one of the very important aspect. It actually discussed in the early stages of the projects nowadays, because we are talking at the production level. In early days, POCs, we are least bothered about it because we are only testing the system, and if it works, and that's the end of the project. But when you're doing the production level, you really have to understand ethics and biases because it's really touching your customers. It's actually it's live. For example, take a very standard example. So if you have an AI model, right, which essentially trained by existing data. Let's say you're a company which mostly hires I don't know people with 70%. I don't want to go into gender or race. Let's say 70% above is required in your academics to actually get hired. I don't know how many of you believe that academic excellence translates to a professional excellence. Maybe yes for most of the time, but otherwise it's not true. The candidate who may not be excellent in his academics, right? He might be, doing great in the professional life, right? So your academic profile may not be a great indicator of your professional work, professional performance, right? Your performance in your work. So if you want to train an AI model, which essentially picks candidates for you for hiring, right? Your AI which can help you in hiring. And if it is trained with your existing data, okay, your existing data actually has all of your employees who have above 70%, right? You don't have anyone less than 70%, but that's a rule you have put in, all right? If that's the rule, of course, AI is trained with that data. So it also gives a biased opinion. So if someone is applying who has 65%, because now you think AI can do a better job, so you remove this rule. This is not a rule because AI can actually predict much better who is working better, who performs well in the operation. In spite of you scrapping this rule, still AI cannot pick up the people who are 65 because it has no data. It has no idea how the candidate with less than 70% can actually perform the operation. So when you train a model, it is trained with the existing data. The existing data has all the human biases or the company rules, biases, whatever you call it, right? So when you train a model with that data, you cannot expect an AI to behave in a more neutral manner. So the bias continues into the model as well. And there's also ethical aspect of it. For example, we have deploying an AI model nowadays basically it frees the company to release employees. So a lot of people might lose job, right? And that's not ethical. Some of the countries they have a strict rules. Some countries they don't have strict rules. But from an ethics perspective, you should be careful in terms of aggressively going for AI adoption. You have to make sure that your current existing force can be retrained to some other skills, minimize the damage happening at the ground level, the employees level. The second limitation AI has is the explainability, right? Because AI is usually a black box. It's trained from the data, and then it predicts for your work, right? How does it predict, right? If it's a neural network, you can technically explain about the weights and biases, but from a simple language, you cannot explain by using rules because AI essentially replaces your rules, right? So it's a black box. So if a person applies for insurance claim, and let's say AI system which is processing that insurance claim rejects it, if the person go and sue the insurance company saying that I don't know why my claim is registered, all right? You cannot say AI is rejected it because you have to give a legal explanation, and which is not possible because you cannot really explain how an AI functions. So that comes up with a lot of complication. So for certain business areas and certain use cases, explainability becomes mandatory by law, by compliance, whatever it is. So you cannot simply go ahead and apply AI for A because you cannot explain the results. Okay, so the transparency becomes a question. So the lack of transparency can be a significant issue, especially in industries that require explainability for compliance and trust principles. I already talked about compliance here. Regulatory compliance, there are bodies. In fact, I have next slide. I have a couple of guidelines which we follow when you're working with US clients and European clients. Right? There are written rules to be followed to be more compliant in terms of delivering the AI project. Okay, these are only top 3, but there are many other key limitations which AI comes up with. So this is the last one, privacy, ethics, and compliance, the fifth one. Right? Business owners may not be fully understand the ethical implication, regulatory compliances because they're not experts, right? So when we do the projects, right, we are expected to educate the clients, educate the business owners in terms of whatever rules applicable in their region. So if you're doing a medical related things, we have a HIPAA compliance. I have put the document link over here. Um, I will, I will just copy this link to the. Uh, you can just Google for it, HIPAA compliance. You'll find this document. And this has a set of laws to be rules to be implemented, followed as a part of AI project. The similar manner, you have a blueprint of AI bills released 2 years ago by US. It is in a whitehouse.gov, and you can simply Google for blueprint for AI bill for rights. It is a very comprehensive 70 plus pages document, and it gives you a lot of ground, a lot of information, guidelines to follow to ensure that you are in compliance with the corresponding regional regulatory norms. Okay, there are many, and I'll share the list as required. All right, so those are the top 5 aspects which we face in terms of delivering the products. I just want to go back. Okay, I missed a slide, but so overestimation of AI capabilities, data and access size, alignment with the business goals, AI limitations, which I explained 3 of it, and of course, privacy and ethics, which I shared few documents as well. So that's all for this this session. A quote: "Success in AI project comes with the blending smart technology with the people need." You cannot be a technology forcing to the business. So it has to come from a business need and try to fit in the technology, a smart technology like AI, to it, and also making sure it's ethical, fitting it smoothly into the business, right? And yeah, of course, using the innovation and turning the challenges into opportunity. So in order for you to be successful, you should always find the business problem and try to see if AI fits in it, not forcing AI make. While doing it, it should be very ethical, at least as required by the compliance, fitting smoothly into the business process, turning the challenges. All right, so I have 5 minutes for questions. Great. You can put the questions in a Q&A section in Zoom, or if you have a questions, if you're joining from LinkedIn or other channels, you just write it down in the comments. I will take it from there, okay? I have a question from Mr. Ram. It says, with all the hype around data being a new oil, do you think companies are getting over their apprehensions of sharing their data, or do you think they'll miss the train actually gain useful insights on their data? It's an excellent question, by the way. So I must tell from my experience that the apprehensions of sharing the data has come down, but there are certain legal requirements to be followed, the data privacy rules to be followed. But as such, businesses are not, I think, except financial banking sector, other sectors are pretty much opening up, right, from an industry perspective. But it is not about apprehensions of sharing data. It's about realizing how useful the AI is, because always remember, demand drives the necessity is the mother of invention, or demands drives the the project. So if the company, the people who are at the top of the company's management think AI is a something which is not really on their mainstream, it may not affect their business in a short term or sometimes long term, right? So it is not giving you new threats, or there is no great opportunities adapting AI, then they will not be interested, and they will be not happy to explore that data sharing aspects and try to see how to fix it. There are many guidelines available as we speak today. 2024, we have clearly laid guidelines from different regions, also from many non-profit bodies, which can be followed to ensure that you're in compliance with all the data related privacy and other rules. Still, you can share the data. One of the example, we really don't need customer related meta information. Like we don't really worry about knowing the name or email or phone numbers or address or whatever it is. We just need the data itself, right? Their interaction with the business, sometimes their gender, but the identity of the customers related data is not required. So if you take that off, the rest of the data is kind of like, it's anonymous data, right? And if you want to be even more secure, so you could actually transform this data into a different labels, and then we can share it to the project team. And that's what we do in our projects. Thank you for the question. I have a question from Hari. What are the challenges of ensuring transparency and interpretability in AI systems, especially in critical applications such as healthcare and finance? I think I covered this. Healthcare and finance, right? This is a black box. There are a lot of challenges we face. If you take the fraud analytics, it is pretty straightforward. So a transaction, if it is deemed as a fraud from AI system, it goes to the manual interpretation. Someone call you and check who are you before executing the transaction. If it is to give a healthcare advice or suggesting a premium or rejecting insurance, it becomes a little tricky because you need to be legally compliant in terms of rejecting or suggesting, advising in a healthcare segment, right? And AI cannot do that. So there are challenges in this area. All right. Any further questions? I request a team to see if there is any question from the LinkedIn. All right. So the question from LinkedIn. ChatGPT paid millions to New York Times due to complaints. How crucial is the complaints? So it is not complaints. It is mostly because ChatGPT is trained on the New York Times or many other news articles, right? So they get benefited from the content of New York Times. And New York Times has the ownership of this one. They have the copyrights, right? So you train something on this and you make money out of it. So obviously, these guys will ask a part of it. That's what happened there. So it's not related to complaints, right? It's related to, you know what, you stole my stuff and you're making money. So give me my part. All right. Any further questions? Great. Okay, I have another question from LinkedIn again. How do regulatory frameworks impact the development and adoption of AI technologies? Regulatory frameworks, I have mentioned 2 regulatory frameworks already. And they have a lot of, if you work with them over a period of time, you understand how to adapt them without violating any of these frameworks. But they do pose challenges in certain areas. So it is still in work in progress, though they have defined it for now. So there'll be addition of changes happening in these frameworks, and then it makes it more easy for people to adapt. So interestingly, these regulatory frameworks do not apply for the bad guys. For example, if you're trying to hack a system or do something which is not, which doesn't really, it's not illegal. It's a different kind of business. So for them, it doesn't apply. So what happens is these guys can do many things, and they can use AI in whatever manner they want. In fact, there are countries and regions which does not have a proper compliance in place. So these guys actually explore and they develop much faster than companies which put a lot of regulatory compliance and stuff. The good guys are penalized. They cannot develop fast. And the bad guys or people who don't have the compliance, they can do experiments and they can really grow fast in the technology. But that's how the world is. Okay. A question from Mr. Yeah, please go ahead, Ram. You should be able to speak.
Yeah. We're seeing that in Europe, we have a lot of frameworks being set up, like NIST for standards frameworks for executing AI projects. So going forward, do you think that will be the norm for most projects which will be executed for every other part of the world?
Yeah, so especially let's talk about India. So we do not have a very strong compliance framework. We adapt something from Europe because we usually adapt the things from what the client region is from. So it's good to take Europe or US frameworks guidelines as of now. and they're mostly generic. And if you look at it, it's on a very high level. I have shared 2 links actually in the PPT. So they're very high level. To answer your question, these things keep on changing, right? And as of now, most of the developing countries do not have a very strong compliance yet, but it's a work in progress. But it's always recommended to refer to the European and US standards, which was published a few years ago. Thank you, Ram. All right, I think we are done. And so let me know in the comments if you're in LinkedIn and other channels, what kind of topics you would like to know from a real-time perspective and the challenges, or what do you expect from me? Because I'm going to spare some time on a weekly basis to share some knowledge. So I'd love to hear what is your expectations, and accordingly I can deliver the webinars coming forward. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.